Bismillah. Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. Salatu salam Rasulullah. Thank you all for coming out today or tonight. May Allah bless you all. May Allah keep us safe. May Allah bless those who are suffering in Palestine. Our brothers and sisters, keep them into us. At this point, that's all they have. So let's keep them safe in our du'as. Ameen. Jazakallah khair for joining us tonight. These last 40 days or so have been particularly devastating for us all, individually and as a global community. With the calamity and devastation that's happening in Palestine, along with what's happening in Sudan, Congo, and other areas of the world, and within the Ummah. Most of us, including our kids, have been experiencing constant waves of emotions and heaviness, whether that's anger, sadness, fear, profound grief, overwhelmed, and lots of trauma. These times have been difficult, and we are all continuing to feel immense pain day in and day out. And the fact that we are all still here, able to push through everything that we are being exposed to, speaks to our individual and collective resilience as an ummah. If we are going to continue our efforts of activism and the pursuit of justice, we have to be able to sustain ourselves for the marathon. Inshallah ta'ala, tonight's discussion will be about how we can strengthen our inner resilience, mentally, physically, and spiritually, and take care of ourselves not just for the purpose of diminishing stress, but to be able to continued service to others. Ameen. Building resilience during difficult times. First of all, everybody should be asking the question to each other, how are you? This is very important, build community bonds. We're here tonight to talk about ways to build resilience with mind, body, and heart. Resilience of the mind. Resilience. Resilience is the ability to adapt and bounce back from adversity, trauma, or stress. That trauma or stress can come in different forms. It can come in major or minor episodes. And why does resiliency matter? Resilience is crucial for mental and emotional well-being. It helps individuals cope with life's challenges and maintain a positive outlook on life. Some key traits of resilient people: positive mindset, adaptability, perseverance, and social support. The resilience process. Acknowledge and accept change. Develop a realistic perspective on challenges. Utilize problem-solving skills. Seek and accept support when needed. Overcoming negative thinking. Challenging negative thoughts, self-talk. Self-talk is very important for our day-to-day emotional well-being. It's how we speak to ourselves. It's very important. Encourage positive self-talk. Challenge catastrophic thinking, and focus on what can be controlled. Building a support system. We all need a support system. Family, friends, coworkers. The importance of social support it can't be stressed enough. We want to cultivate a network of friends, family, and mentors. We want to share experiences and feelings with trusted individuals, so we have somebody to talk to when we have a traumatic experience, or we see a traumatic image, or somebody tells us of a traumatic experience. We need that person to talk to lean on others during difficult times and challenging times. We want to cultivate optimism, developing an optimistic outlook, a daily outlook that's optimistic. We want to focus on the present moment, what we can do for the here and now, what's possible for us in the here and now. We want to find opportunities for growth and learning, coming to events, doing things for the community, learning, gaining knowledge, and cultivating gratitude for our community and ourselves. We want to learn from setbacks. Embracing failure and setbacks is part of life. We want to learn how to embrace them in a positive way, use setbacks as opportunities for learning and growth, and highlight examples of successful individuals who face failures. We want to develop problem-solving skills, effective problem-solving, breaking down challenges into manageable steps. So no matter what your anxiety level, you're able to approach these problems and take it down step by step. And identify potential solutions and take decisive actions. Self-care. Prioritizing your self-care in your daily life is very, very important. It can help mitigate the long-lasting effects of trauma. You want to highlight the importance of physical, emotional, and your mental well-being. We want to discuss the role of exercise, relaxation, and healthy habits. How is your diet? Are you going to the gym? Are you at least walking? What are you doing in your daily exercise routine? Resilience in the workplace. A lot of us have a lot of built-up stress from work, and then we hear about the traumatic events that are happening around the world, and that affects us as well. So we want to develop resilience in our professional settings with adaptability and problem solving. We want to cultivate resilience in our children, teaching the resilience to children, the importance of nurturing resilience from a young age, and developing strategies for parents and educators in conjunction with the youth so that they're part of the plan and that they want to engage. And we must engage the youth. And at that point, I'll pass the baton.
Assalamu alaikum. So I want to do a check-in with you all and ask this question. How do you know when you are feeling stressed or overwhelmed? Not everybody at once. Okay. You get headaches, yep. Cry, okay. What about the brothers? How do you know when you're stressed or overwhelmed? Overreacting. Okay, overreacting. Lack of sleep, yep. Any other things? One more time? Yeah, irritable and snapping. All very good examples of knowing. And there's a lot more other ways. So one of the things that's important to understand, especially in resiliency, is that there is a direct connection between your mind and your body and how it operates together. So over the last several years, there's been a lot of research to support that as humans, we experience our emotions on a cellular level. So when we experience feelings, whether they are joyous, whether they're traumatic, whether there's something in between, our bodies are experiencing it at the same time. And so even when we are thinking or feeling overwhelmed, it's not always in our head, because our bodies hold on to stressful experiences as well. And when our bodies hold on to those stressful experiences, our bodies have their own language. So a lot of the things that you all mentioned right now were physical based, right? Lack of sleep, headache, changes in mood. All of these are physical based, so that means that there is a connection between how we're thinking, how we're feeling, and how we're actually experiencing. And so when our mind is relaxed, our muscles are also relaxed, right? And when we're stressed, a state of physical and mental tension is produced. And so this is what the mind-body connection is, knowing that every change in the mental and emotional state causes a change in the body physiology as well. So what happens to our nervous system with chronic stress? How many of us have had much relief from chronic stress that we've been experiencing over the last 40 days, last month and a half? Has there been much relief? Do any of us really feel rested or feel close to being okay? Probably not, right? So now our bodies are in a state of chronic stress. And the truth is, it's just amplified right now. We all were already dealing with our own personal lives before this, right? We were dealing with our families, our relationships, our responsibilities, our own personal traumas, our jobs, as Brother Malik mentioned, all of the expectations. And so now our bodies are just simply in a more amplified overdrive. And likely we're burning out. And so the stress that we experience is detected by our nervous system, and to keep us physically and psychologically safe, we'll release certain hormones that will either increase our heart rate, increase our blood pressure and breathing, that's usually like the fight-flight response, or slow us down. Our breathing also slows us down, where maybe we numb out, and that's the freezing response. Have you all heard of fight, flight, freeze? Yes, so these are trauma responses that our body experiences, right? And I think a lot of us are feeling really overwhelmed now and experiencing one of these, or maybe a combination of all of these at any given point. And so everybody has different survival and stress responses. And so our body has a very particular language of stress. That language is not expressed through words, but it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's communication to us that something is wrong, we're not okay. So these are some of the physical experiences of stress, right? How many of us are feeling nervous, on edge, fearful? How many of us are able to stop worrying, especially right now, right? How many of us are able to control our thoughts, or even relax, or even want to relax, right? Because now there's a guilt associated with us being relatively okay, knowing what's happening to our brothers and sisters. And so see, these are just some of the languages that our body communicates through, some of the experiences. Fatigue, feeling detached, chest heaviness. How many of us feel heaviness in our chest, or pressure in our chest, or weightedness in our shoulders when we're stressed, right? All body communication. And then there's also mental communication too, right? So not being able to concentrate. I would say that's probably one of my go-to stress responses. When I'm feeling an overdrive of stress, I'm really not able to focus on one particular thing. How many of us are having intrusive thoughts? And then something that was mentioned already, just the changes in mood, right? So these are all physical responses to stress. So then what does it mean to be able to take care of ourselves and cultivate resilience within our bodies? So our body is the vessel through which we will be doing this justice work for our entire lives, right? And our bodies are also a trust given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's our duty to take care of it. So taking care of ourselves is part of the collective work of activism. And so what are just the different methods of activism that you prefer to do? And anyone can just kind of yell this out. What is one of your preferred methods? Okay. Yep. Volunteering and community work. Yep. And you can raise, like, you guys can just kind of yell out or. Social media. Okay. Yep. Salah and dua. Yeah. How many of us go to protests? Like going to protests? Yeah. And then I imagine there's also people that protest is not really for them as well, right? Yeah. Not for you? Say that one more time. Your body is the vessel through which we will be doing justice work? Yeah, so anything that we do, anything that we experience, right? Our bodies are with us that entire time. So if we're going to protest, our bodies are there. If we are on social media for, let's say, just hours a day, posting and reposting or creating content, our bodies are with us experiencing that. If we are experiencing any kind of microaggressions from the outside, our bodies are with us there. And so our bodies pick up on the chronic feelings that we experience, right? And it just stays with us. It stays with us unless we find a way to discharge or channel it, right? And so that is why taking care of ourselves and knowing how to take care of ourselves in this way too is really important. And so with the different forms of activism, right, Allah also gave us all very different gifts. And so in order to take care of your body, one of the things that's really important to know is what you can and cannot do, right? What you can and cannot handle. So going to protest is wonderful, it's great, alhamdulillah. Is it for everybody? Probably not, right? Being on social media, it's a great way that a lot of us are getting information right now and reposting and educating others. Is it for everybody? Probably not, right? So there's a lot of different things that we can do, right? And we just have to figure out what works best for each of us. Some of us don't like to be open with any of that, and we would prefer to do our activism through salah and dua, right? And that's okay. So it's just about knowing yourself and knowing how to check in with yourself as well. Or else we'll burn out. And then who will we be good to? Nobody. And so over the next few slides, I want to talk about just different ways that we can cultivate that resilience through our bodies, right? So one of those ways is through mindfulness and meditation. And this has always been a part of the Islamic tradition. I think over the last several years, as mindfulness and meditation have kind of become a culture in the West, they seem to take on their own identity that we don't usually think is a part of our tradition, right? Because we think it might take away from salah and dua and might be its own entity. But in reality, it's not, right? In Islam, we call it muraqabah. So having this constant awareness in everything that we do of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even when we make salah, right, we have to constantly remember to bring our attention back to our salah. That's mindfulness, and that's meditative as well. So it's about creating sensory awareness to focus in rather than being everywhere and feeling like we're nowhere. And through research, right, mindfulness practices and meditation have been shown to help ease stress, reduce feelings of anxiety and depression. And so this is something that I think is very accessible to all of us if we're able to just focus in on it as well. And just more like an extension of that, right? There's different ways to be mindful, and there's different meditative practices that we can have that are within our tradition. We don't have to look outside of it. And so one of my particular favorite things to do is like going through the different names of Allah and whatever attribute of His that I'm needing at that moment, praying through that, right? So if I am in need of peace, right, I'm praying through as-salam. If we're needing love, right, al-wadu. If we are needing a friend, al-wali. So this is just a really beautiful way that we can also just cultivate greater mindfulness for ourselves. And then, you know, we have nature as well that's very accessible to us. So just spending a few minutes outside, you know, spending some time in the sun, taking a break from our devices. These are all ways that we can just bring our body back to a sense of groundedness. So another way to cultivate resilience is to also have awareness of our body and what's happening to it, right? So body scanning involves paying attention to the parts of the body and bodily sensations in a gradual sequence from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, and mentally scanning yourself, bringing awareness to every single part of your body, noticing any aches, any pains, any tension, just any discomfort anywhere. And this is just a good practice to have overall, right? Okay, so I'm going to challenge you all to do just a little engagement exercise with me, okay? So start at the top of your head, okay? Just bring awareness to the top of your head. Is anything happening? Do I have a headache? Do I feel anything? And as you drop into your body a little bit, notice if your jaw is clenched or tight. And if it is, just unclench it, let it drop. If your tongue is at the roof of your mouth, just drop it. Going down further, how is your neck doing? How are your shoulders doing? Do they feel heavy? Do they feel tense? Do they feel okay? Dropping down a little more, how is your heart space? Is there any tension there? Is there any heaviness there? What's happening? Maybe lengthen your back a little bit, right? Sitting up a little bit straighter. Notice your hands. Is there any tension in your hands? And if so, try to relax them. Notice your seat, and if there's anything, how you're feeling, and just kind of relax how you're sitting. And just drop down to your legs and down to the bottom of your feet. And just think about what you notice. Did you notice any aches and pains? Did you notice any sensations? Another really helpful way to cultivate resilience in the body is through breathing, just doing intentional breathing exercises. And so one way that's really helpful is breathing in through your nose and doing big exhales throughout your mouth, right? This is also a way to just constantly bring us back. This is something that I do throughout the day anyway. Like when I'm just noticing that I'm scattered, I'm all over the place, I'm having a hard time focusing, if I can just remember to come back to my breath, it's just very helpful. And then lastly, just cultivating resilience through movement. This is also just a very, very, very accessible and easy way for us to be able to discharge stress that we have. And so there's a lot of medicine and healing in movement, in breath, and both of these things can help us return to feeling more grounded and connected. So just taking a 5-minute walk, if that's all the time that you can spare, right? Even stretching, if that's all that you're able to do in those moments. These can have really, really big impacts on your health, on your body, and especially on your mood. And so, movement as well.
All right, Assalamu alaikum. Oh, that's loud. One way that helps me understand resiliency, thinking about cars. I love cars. Who here likes cars? Anyone like any car people? Yeah, okay. So let me ask you this. Which lasts longer? Toyota 4Runner or Lamborghini Urus? Toyota. Why does a Toyota last longer? It's built to last? How is it built to last? I don't know. It's made in Japan and something. They do something right over there, right? The way that, even though, what's the cost difference though? It's a huge difference in price, right? It's the way the engine is built, right? Even though it's $100,000, probably $200,000 cheaper, that thing lasts, right? Even the new 4Runner, the current model, they've had the same thing for like 12 years. Normally cars, they update them, right? The 4Runner right now, they haven't changed it because they don't need to change it because the way they built it is really, this is what they did. It's a V6, so big engine, but not a lot of horsepower, right? They're saying the new one that's going to come out is going to be probably a 4-cylinder turbo. Which of those two 4Runners, the old one and the new one coming out, which one do you think people are expecting to last longer? Why the old one? What's that? People know it, yeah, but there's less stress on the engine, right? It's a bigger engine and less power, so there's less pressure on all the parts inside, right? So the newer engine is smaller, right? More fuel efficient, right? But there's more stress on the little thing under the hood. Resiliency of the heart, I feel like it's like making that engine strong within yourself, right? We take care of our bodies, we take care of our thought process, our mental health too. It's all mental health, right? What is mental health? Your whole being is mental health. But your soul, right? Your inner being is also, we have to continue to maintain that resiliency. I look around the room and I feel like I see a lot of resilient people, right? And it's unfortunate that we have to be so resilient right now. Right? We're having to be resilient due to things that are outside of our control. So it would be nice to not have to be so resilient. But unfortunately, this is the state that we're in right now, right? So we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our community to take care of ourselves physically, right? You owe it to your family to take care of yourself physically so you can work, so you can be at your best. Mentally, right? Being at your best mentally allows you to maintain your relationships, right? The irritability that comes up, that the snappiness or the low energy, that doesn't only affect you, it affects the people around you. Resiliency is not, it's for you, but it's for the people around you too. It's for everyone. We need each other right now, right? So this week I Googled Muslim mental health. I was just curious to know what was out there. And this article came up, and it was an article from some researchers at University of Miami, and they said that when the rise of Islamophobia, mental health goes down in Muslim communities, right? Or when a person feels that there's a lot of Islamophobia, their wellness goes down. So I Googled the researchers and I emailed them. I was like, so does that mean that if a person doesn't think that there's a lot of Islamophobia, that they're better off mentally, right? If I think that people don't like me, then of course I'm going to be in a bad place. But if I correct my mindset, would that affect how I'm feeling? His response was, that would be invalidation of what people are going through, right? That Islamophobia does exist. People do experience microaggressions, racism, discrimination. That does happen, right? And he said that what happens is when Islamophobia goes up, the community gets closer together, which is beneficial. But one of the drawbacks is that whatever ideas we already have, good and bad, they get reinforced, right? So if we have something like, I don't know, maybe a mental health stigma that exists, right, which we do have in the community, as the community gets tighter, that idea gets only strengthened. And when that gets strengthened, when someone's going through a hard time, they don't go outward. They go inward and they feel that there's something wrong with me, that I'm lacking something. So I think that it's important to just be mindful of, getting tight, getting stronger as a community has its benefits. We want to be mindful of how we're influencing each other, right? And that we're there for each other emotionally as well. I wanted to, I'm a therapist, and I'm all about, therapy interventions, but I'm in the masjid right now, so I thought, I want to talk about something that has helped me with resiliency, right? And that's a surah, Surah Duha. And maybe I can recite it and go through it with you guys if you're okay. I'm not a scholar, right? So I'm approaching this as a person, as a therapist, but really just a person. All right. This is just what I was talking about earlier. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنحر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. So before the surah was revealed, the Prophet ﷺ was not getting a revelation for a while. There's different opinions about it. I'm not going to go into that. What I heard was about 6 months. Maybe Brother Muhammad, you can correct me on that. Is that, yeah? Okay, I got the thumbs up. Good. I was sweating about this all day thinking that. Okay, so don't come to me for the facts. But you can do your own research. But I thought that was so interesting that he did not get a revelation for a long time. And he started to have doubt. Initially, I was thinking a sense of hopelessness, but Brother Mahin said I would be careful to use that word and to make assumptions about his feeling. But there was doubt. That's a pretty much agreed upon feeling. And there was a thought that the revelation was not coming because of something to do with him. So let me go over these ayahs. But just that in and of itself, that is just, it highlights the humanness, of the Prophet ﷺ, right? وَالضُّحَى, by the morning brightness. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by the morning's rise, right? You know how we say, Wallahi, well, Allah is swearing by His creation. The creation that you see every day. Sorry. All right, look. Trying to keep my cool here. It's beautiful though. Allah is swearing by what you see every morning, like clockwork. Literally, it's clockwork, right? He's trying to make a point that he's swearing by the sun, the morning rise. I can't explain it better than what it is. By the morning brightness, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى, and by the night when it covers with darkness. ما ودعك ربك وما قلى. Does anyone know the meaning of this verse? You can scream it out loud. Your caretaker has not abandoned you, nor has he detested you. The word abandon is so powerful to me, because it's when I hear that, it speaks to me. It reminds me of all the times that I felt abandoned. I felt alone. And I won't make a conclusion about what the Prophet ﷺ was feeling, but I will pose a question that, what was he feeling? I feel safer writing that. He felt something. Brother Mahan said that there was also a narration that someone else said that Allah had abandoned him. But what I was taught was that he was not in a good place, and so he was in doubt, right? This verse also tells me that Allah is validating the existence of that emotional state, whatever it was. That's what my interpretation is, right? But also challenging the thoughts behind it, right? So the verse, when I hear it, it validates how I feel. My feeling is acknowledged, that it's a thing, right? That it's a real emotion, that the verse is talking about feeling abandoned, and it's challenging that notion. I think we've all felt maybe not abandoned, but alone at times, right? At least for me, I know that during your darkest moments, that's what an emotion comes up. This verse also reminds me that although I might feel something, that doesn't mean that it's factually true, right? So this says that to me, that reminds me that feelings are not facts, which is a big thing when it comes to therapy, right? When I'm talking to someone and they feel something, right? Let's say if someone has social anxiety, they're feeling that everyone's judging them. But just because they're feeling that they're being judged, does that mean that they are being judged? No. Most people are actually thinking about themselves, right? So it's a good reminder that your feelings are valid, meaning that they exist and that they're true as an experience, but the story behind them might not always be true. So we always want to validate what we feel and challenge our assumptions, right? So right now, it feels hopeless at times. That's a valid feeling. Do we know that it's hopeless? No. If you look at the past month, how things have changed. People have been embracing Islam in the past month, looking at the resiliency of our brothers in Palestine. I mean, that's a miracle, right? The surah also talks, Allah is talking about the future too, right? وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى, which, and the hereafter is better for you than the first life. So initially I put that Allah is acknowledging that the life after, Allah is acknowledging that this life is suffering. But the more accurate thing, more factual, non-polarizing statement is that Allah is acknowledging that this life is temporary, right? This could be a life-changing reminder. If someone's at their lowest point and you are about to give up, and this happens all the time. People, when they have thoughts of deep despair, deep hopelessness, and everything horrible that they thought would not happen happened, right? And and it might not get better, right? This is a verse that person needs to hear. The reminder that this life is not permanent. As Muslims, this is what we believe, right? This is a huge part of what our faith entails. And that can always put things into perspective. وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَىٰ. And your Lord, your caretaker, is going to give you, and you will be satisfied. There also is a reminder of the past, right? أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. Did he not find you an orphan and give you refuge? So Allah is reminding the Prophet ﷺ that you were an orphan, right? From a psychodynamic perspective, as a therapist, we know that we have a huge emphasis on parents, your caretakers, right? Your mother or your father, or your mother figure or father figure, right? Also siblings too. Not just for physical things, right? Like shelter and food, but also psychologically. You know, your caretakers provide that foundation, you know. They say that there was a psychologist, Kohut, maybe it was a psychiatrist, I don't know. He said that there's 3 things that everyone needs, the poles. One is that every child needs to be the twinkle in their mother's eye. They need to feel as though they're special. They also need to feel that they're similar to everyone else. So it's kind of a weird thing. A child needs to feel special, unique, and also not like too unique that you're a weirdo, right? Like you can get along with everyone, right? You're part of the group. And they also need to feel that they could look behind their shoulder and see that their mom is still there. So they can go explore the world, and they look back and they can feel safe that, oh, I can go explore and come back and mom's gonna be there. That stability, right? What I love also about this verse is that it's posed as a question, and not just like, did you just forget? And he found you lost and guided you. وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. I think about myself. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's felt lost, right? Maybe some of us still feel that way. I'm sure I still feel lost at times too. Who doesn't feel lost at times? I don't know anyone who really feels like they got it all together, let's be honest. We're all trying to figure this life thing out. But he found you lost and guided you. وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. And he found you poor and made you self-sufficient. Now, I've heard also that what poor means might not be literally financial, but something else, something more metaphorical. But again, just that reminder of, did you forget what I did for you? What this makes me think of also is that you do your part, right? But so much of what happens is out of your control, at least for myself. I don't know how things happen, they just happen. I show up, I do what I can, right? I share that video, make a comment, protest, make dua, study for that test, apply for the job, but ultimately, it's all in Allah's hands. So, talking about control, let me just kind of shift gears here, right? It's important to build resiliency to recognize what's in your control and what's out of your control, right? Because I don't think that the takeaway is that just give it up, give everything up, you're not in control of anything, right? No, you got to do your part too. You do you, and then Allah will do what He does, right? So we're not saying to be passive. Allah's saying not to be passive, right? But that He is your caretaker, that He is there with you. So what's out of my control? I used to tell people, my first thought is out of my control, meaning like my first negative thought, right? Like I should just give up. I can't always control that thought from, boop, just pop it in my head. It just pops in my head. I can't even stop. The more I try to stop it, the more it even shows up. So my first thought is not in my control, but my second thought is in my control, right? My first thought, just don't even try. You're going to fail this test. My second thought, well, wait a minute. Let me just try to study and let's see what happens, right? What's on social media? Actually, I guess that's subjective because we all play a part in what is on there, but what you're viewing is out of your control, right? What is in your control is your exposure to it, you know? I think that right now, I'm kind of stuck of like, well, because a lot of people are getting negatively influenced by what they see on social media, but at the same time, being engaged in it also is a form of activism and people feel empowered. But I think you need to be mindful of how you're using it. If it's taken away from your, people have told me that they're looking at things and they're having nightmares and they're not sleeping. That is not building resiliency, right? That's gonna burn you out very quick. So taking a break is okay if that is what is beneficial for you. When it comes to longevity, right, being that Toyota of an activist, right, you want to have that ability to endure. Other people out of my control, but my boundaries are not, right? I get to control that to a degree. Of course, things get messy with family. My effort is in my control. My anxiety, I would say, is out of my control. But how I cope with that anxiety is in my control. My sleep, my time management, my self-care, taking care of my health, getting help, talking about it. Global events. It's a tough one, but yeah. But healthy advocacy is in my control. Genetics, out of my control. This pertains to physical health and mental health. But what I do with myself is in my control. Just to give an example, right? So I asked the question, what's in your control and what's out of your control? And that might take some more time. Let me go back to this. You can just take a photo of this if you want. That might take some, reflection. And it's a continuous thing. Every day you're trying to figure that out. In every moment, right? What's in my control, what's out of my control. Sometimes you just gotta give it up. You have a boss and they're saying something offensive, maybe too political, and your job is on the line and it's just out of your control. You just don't really want to engage in it, right? Recognizing that is, I think, very healthy. A suffering has meaning. So, as for the orphan, do not oppress him. Our experiences can help us connect with others who suffer, right? That we imagine if you never you didn't go through anything difficult. How would you connect with people? How would you, your challenges help you connect with your children and your family, right? It's good to suffer at times. Let me rephrase that. It's beneficial for your relationships that you suffer. Otherwise, you would just be in this bubble. I don't know what you're talking about, man. I've never felt that before, right? So our experiences can help give our lives meaning and our experiences meaning by redirecting outward. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. And as for the beggar, do not repel him. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. And as for your caretaker's blessings, proclaim it. Meaning that being mindful of your blessings, being mindful of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. I think that another emotion that I've heard a lot about is the feeling of guilt. Witnessing others suffer and feeling guilty that you are not in that position. And I think that I personally feel like that might not be the healthiest thing. And I don't know if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wanting us to feel guilty, right? Gratitude is not the same as guilt. The verse is talking about sharing the abundance of blessings with others and keep becoming mindful of them. Keep becoming mindful, aware of what Allah has done for you. My takeaway from this surah is that Allah has never abandoned you. He's not abandoning you now, nor will He abandon you in the future. right? Because the verses they talk about, do you remember what I did? And making you aware again of what his promise is to you. And again, he's swearing by the sun, the morning sun and the night, the things that we see every day. I would say another takeaway for me is that the heart remembers everything. Right? Your heart knows. But the mind forgets. The mind forgets. And then it's just the surah again, I put. Let me read it actually, just so. It's a summary. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. وَالضُّحَى, by the morning brightness. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى, and by the night when it covers with darkness. مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى, your caretaker has not abandoned you, nor has he detested you. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى, and the hereafter is better for you than the first life. وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى, and your Lord is going to give you, and you will be satisfied. أَلَمْ يَجِدَكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى, did he not find you an orphan and give you refuge? وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًا فَهَدَى, and he found you lost and guided you. وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى, and he found you poor and made you self-sufficient. فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْحَرْ, so as for the orphan, do not oppress him. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ, and as for the beggar, do not repel him. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ, and for your caretaker's blessing, proclaim it. All right, that's all I have. Jazakallah. Any closing comments?
So at this point, we just take a few moments and open it to the floor for questions, kind of a Q&A session. If anything's on anybody's mind, any questions, we're here to take them. We have one over here. So that's a PTSD. Yeah, and I'm not a PTSD specialist, so I wouldn't be able to speak on that with confidence.
Thank you for your question. One of the most helpful ways to help resolve that is with the support of someone else. And so something like therapy can be very helpful in understanding and working through with someone what it is that one is experiencing and continues to experience, and how we can actually work through that. Because if it's something that's historical that keeps coming up over and over and over, it's stuck somewhere in your understanding. And so working with someone, honestly, is probably what I would advise, to work through that. Do you want to add anything?
The word stuck, that's a very important word. We want to turn that experience into unexperience instead of the experience, right? So we're through therapy, what the goal is to take away the emotional charge of it. So you're allowed to reflect on it at some point and not have the feeling of it. When the memory is coming up, the feeling that happened, that you experienced, or that person experienced, it's almost like they're having it again. right? So by talking about it, in therapy and in a safe environment, right? You're basically you're getting desensitized to it. You're getting, and that might not be the correct word, but yeah, you're getting unstuck from it, basically. Yeah.
Or just the effect that it continues to have on you in your present day life, right? That's the unstuckness of taking that power away from what happened and allowing it to become like a bad memory or just a memory that's long ago.
I would start with, I think personally, I would start with like self-talk, positive self-talk. How do you talk to yourself? You know, what is your daily mental state? And how we talk to ourselves will affect that, as well as your physical state of being. You know, are you active? Are you getting those pent-up emotions out? Those are two things that you can focus on to try to mitigate the negative feelings of being scared. You know, like going to the gym builds confidence for one thing, right? That's one example, just for example, which just socially just, you know, can help you feel more confident within your own body and a group. And then that positive self-talk, building those skills, because maybe somebody doesn't know how to do that. You would want to teach them. Instead of saying, I can't do that, you say, I'm going to try to do it a different way. You flip the way you talk to yourself, you know. And that's very important, because the way we talk to ourselves can affect everything from our energy levels to our cognitive ability for, you know, how quickly we can respond to things. I mean, if you're in a positive mood and you're talking to yourself positively on a consistent basis, then that's going to affect your overall state of mind. And you probably won't think as much about as what people might be thinking and might be saying. And because for all you know, they're not thinking or saying those things. This is in your head, you know, coming from negative self-talk, right? We kind of generate our own fears, and in some cases. And then, of course, in those cases that are real, we just want that person to be more confident within their own body and their own person, to be able to navigate that space, you know, that negative space for however long they have to endure it. And then try to help them get away from that if it's something that's occurring regularly, that's an outside force coming into their life and creating that minor moment of you know, trauma, or however you want to term it. That's how I would approach it.
I think your question was saying, how do you help people who are struggling with letting go, like having faith in letting go of what's out of their control? They're naturally anxious. So There's different approaches to it. From a mental health point of view, there's different approaches, different interventions. Some interventions are trying to challenge those anxious thoughts, trying to say, where is it coming from? My personal favorite intervention is one that says, you know what, you're probably going to be anxious. You might be anxious your whole life. And instead of trying to reduce the symptoms, let me ask you this. If you weren't anxious, what would you do? What would you do with your life if you weren't? If you did have that unshakable faith that everything, what would you do? You know, and then let's try to do that. Because I would much rather be anxious and live my life freely than to just be anxious and not do what I want to do. So some people, and that's what like courage is, right? Courage is not being scared, it's being scared and still moving forward. You know, like the phrase leap of faith. You just have to go for it. It doesn't mean that you're not terrified. It means that, so a lot of times as a therapist, when I'm working with clients, we're not always, they come in saying, hey, I don't want to be anxious. And that's one of, you know, it's a very like, you know, it's one-dimensional, okay? It's like, well, okay, if you weren't anxious, then what? You know? Because sometimes being anxious is a great thing. Anxious also it's showing you what you care about too. So I think right now, people in general are very focused on not being uncomfortable. They don't want to feel anxiety. But you have to be anxious to live life. The things that give meaning are going to induce anxiety, right? So yes, there's coping skills that we can do to help with anxiety, right? If I have a fear of driving a car, I'm not saying just go drive the car, right? No, there's mindfulness, breathing techniques, distraction techniques, challenging those thoughts, little exposure, right? Maybe driving around the neighborhood, right? There's ways to slowly make the anxiety less, right? But I think we want to shift the focus from we're trying to just reduce anxiety to find out something, to living with anxiety, right? So can I have faith and still be anxious and worried? Yeah. That's me. I'm anxious all the time, and I still have faith. I'm a walking testament of that, right? And I think that that's okay. Anxiety I view as more like a nervous system thing. I don't view it as more as like a philosophical thing. Of course, I would love to have the faith where I don't feel any anxiety. That'd be wonderful. But I'm not there yet, you know. And I might not ever get there. Allahu Alam. I think we should speak about that.
Pretty much it.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Salam Rasulullah. Thank you all for coming out and spending this time with us. I said, keep the Palestinians in your heart and your du'as. You know, pray for our ummah as a whole. Pray for our safety. Pray for our families. You know, just keep the deen, keep the salat, and keep the du'a. And it's a very powerful thing right now. I think that it's all they have, but it's changing things. And may Allah protect them. May Allah grant them healing and safety. Ameen. From the oppressors. Ameen. Yeah. Thank you all for coming out. Alhamdulillah.